Welcome back, guys. I've got my Ford hat to work on the Porsche, but we are going to put some brakes on this puppy, fix a couple clips in the front bumper as well. So just to let you guys know, the brakes that we're going with are going to be Cebro, which is just a stock style rotor. So the two fronts, the two rears, and then I have EBC yellows for the rear and front. I didn't want to go super aggressive because I do street drive this car a lot. This will be plenty more aggressive than the stock ones. I don't think there should be any heat issues, as these Porsche brakes are larger than the ones people complain about on the Porsche forums. People are absolutely praising these brakes, so I guess we'll find out for myself if I need. It's a pretty quick job to switch out brakes on these cars because of the Brembo calipers, but I will just switch them in the future if I need. So it's the first venture out, and that's what I decided to go with. And then we will obviously have the Motul fluid to replace the brake fluid in the reservoir. I do have the Motive power bleeder to take care of that. However, with all that in mind, let's get this car onto the lift. Lift. I have these quick jacks, which I strongly recommend. They've been doing great for the car, but I'll show you exactly how they're gonna work, and we'll get this puppy up on them. Now once everything's hooked up and aligned, all it takes is this puppy, go up, let her down a little bit, and she's locked in. Now you do get a pretty good amount of height here, but all you have to do is set that up, which obviously is a little bit more than a post lift would be, but this really does a great job of what I need it to do. Now before we get to the brakes, I just want to mention I did do the stud conversion kit, because otherwise putting the wheels on is a total pain in the ass. So all the way around I have studs in the car. It makes putting on and taking off wheels a lot easier. But what I'm going to do first is take off the front bumper. So let me tell you exactly what you have to do so. It's really not difficult. So pop open the hood, or the front. So you're going to take out this, and then this panel, obviously this one when this one comes out, and then you have some bolts underneath here, and then you will have the pieces connecting to the liner. So find and locate all the Torx bits that are inside there, and then the under tray of the bumper obviously has to come off as well. Now mine doesn't have this, but I plan to do that now. I'm going to take it off the old bumper, but there's also a clip between these two panels that you can use a small pick tool, and you can hook, you'll see it, and pull out. So that should be everything to release this bumper. Obviously be aware of your lights or your washers. If you have those, you don't want to pull out any wires. That's unnecessary. And you'll have your bumper off. Like I said, it's not too complicated, thankfully, but I will get mine off here. One more thing I forgot to mention, there is a bit behind this, I believe. So all you have to do to take out these lights, it's really simple. You slide them back, and then you push in, and the front side comes out. And then these are off. German engineering, baby. So that one's not too difficult. And then you do have a screw that's up underneath it. You access it from the back, of course, but if you don't remove this, this assembly will be in the way, so you do have to take that out. All right, now for all the Torx that are up top, you will need a, let's see here, a T25. See that there? And then all the ones on the bottom, I believe, of the bumper are going to be a T27. So those two are really all you need to remove that bumper. So that should fit just right, and yep, absolutely does. So T25 top and wheel wells, and then under the bumper, T27. And the bumper is off. So when you go with the GT4 bumper, the other things that change, obviously, other than the bumper, are these ducts. So you can get to the two radiators on each side, 1 and 2, and then the under tray, which I was able to leave on there and just remove from the bumper. But that's one part of the project finished. Well, actually just started because I need to fix the bumper, but not difficult stuff. All right, now on to the brakes. What you're gonna need for the front, which I believe is gonna be the same on the base Cayman, the S, the GTS, is a T55 Torx, so one of the big puppies. So this is gonna go for pad replacement or rotor replacement, because you can't just remove them from the top like you can in the rear. I'll show you what I mean. So on the rear, you can remove the pads from the rotor through there, which is real nice and easy. But up here, you do have to remove that caliper, but they do make it simple. So you'll have 2 large bolts right back there. You'll see it does just come off from there with a little gentle persuasion. And you have your caliper off. Now, especially on these brakes, you want to get those in a good spot using some zip ties or a metal hanger. But there is hard line back there connected to this rotor, so be very careful that you don't go bend that or kink that. But now we can move on to the rotors. So I'm not going to show you guys the other side. It's the exact same process. It really would be pointless, but I will show you when we get to the back, of course. But for now, let's remove this rotor, and then I'll show you the brake pads. All right, new rotors on. As for the pads, they just slide off. So real nice and easy. There's one. And the second one should have the sensor in it. Which would be correct. And actually what I did was cut the sensor wire. I'm going to be splicing those together on all the corners because I don't need the sensor in here. Whether it's melting or telling me that the brakes are going bad, I know I can check them. Especially because I'll be tracking the car, I'll be checking those every now and then. But if you're doing this, they really recommend you do new ones each time. They're not too expensive. So you can just cut it too. Kind of makes it a lot easier. So now once you unclip the sensor, this is what it looks like. So you can splice these together. Basically what happens within the pad is when it wears down to a certain point, it will cut the connection. You can see how the wire runs through there. So they just loop a wire through, and once that connection breaks, that's when it tells you on the dash that you need new brakes. So really simple, and you can loop that if you don't need to buy new ones. So So all I did on these is used a connector, cut it in half, shrunk it on there, and then I will wrap it in electrical tape and put it back in the car. Next, you're gonna slide the new pads in, very self-explanatory. Compress them a little bit. You can just wedge something in there. They're pretty easy to separate, nothing fancy. And then put it back onto the rotor and tighten your 2 bolts that you took out in the first place. And that'll be it. So like I said, that's it for the front, and I will show you the rear. Okay, now for the rears, it's gonna work really the same way after looking at it. Like I said, if you're doing just pads in the rear, you can pull this pin here, so you'll see the little shiny piece, and then push out this pin that it holds in, and then you should be able to slide out those rear pads very, very easily. But because I am doing rotors, I have to do the same thing as the front. It's the same 2 T55 bolts. Remove those, take the caliper off, and throw new pads in. Either way, you're gonna have to remove this, so you may as well remove the pads first and go from there. Once that pin is pushed back, this spring will push up and get that out of the way. And you see the sensor wires. There is one that goes to each brake. And then you can just pull these puppies out. As you can see, it is that easy. Once that pin's been replaced, it has to go through the back. What I did was I used a clamp to just start clamping it and pulling it in. There's not much room for a mallet back there. That worked perfectly. Really helps that these cars aren't all rusty. I mean, everything is so easy because you keep up on the maintenance. But throwing those brakes in is really not too hard. Now I just need to tighten those 2 bolts holding it on, and the rear is also done. All right, all the brakes are done. We got 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now what's next is to put the Motul fluid into the car. I do have the power bleeder, so I've got that connected. I have a full reservoir, and now I'm just gonna bleed most of that out. So I've got it just over 15 pounds on the pressure gauge. So I took all the tops off of these, and you want to start from the brake furthest from the reservoir, which is going to be the passenger side rear, and most of the fluid is going to come out of this one. We're going to just about drain that, but not all the way, and then we'll add some of the new fluid to go in behind it, and we'll go around the whole car to bleed the system. See from the reservoir, it's just watching the level, and once that gets pretty low, we will add fluid to the reservoir and the tank and run it through the rest of the brakes. Now of course, you want to be very careful with brake fluid. It will eat away paint, so cover everything that you're around. But now I'm going to put the Motul fluid into the reservoir. It's getting pretty low over here, and then hopefully we'll see a little color change once it gets to the caliper. But I'm Alright, so now you can see the fluid is pretty darn clear, and here the Motul is a lot more clear than the yellow that was coming up before. So it is all the way through the system. So I'm not going to record it, but what you want to do next on a smaller scale is jump from nozzle to nozzle. So outside first on these brake calipers, they're all gonna have two because there's pistons on each side. So outside, then inside for not too long. There's not gonna be much fluid in between those lines, but you wanna hit them both. And then you'll jump to the driver's side rear, do the same outside until it changes color, or just give it about, I'd say 2 minutes. And then the inside caliper, not very long, but the same way. And then you want to do passenger side front. That is the next closest. You won't have to do too much there because it's so close. And then even less so on the driver's side, doing the same thing, and everything should be bled. After you've closed up all the nozzles, you want to top off your fluid and make sure it's at a good level. Also, if you just did your pads and everything, after you take it for a drive, break them in, check the fluid level again because it will settle a little bit to get them closer to the rotors. But outside of that, you should be set to go. And that's it. Bumpers on, brakes are done. Next weekend I will be recording my first autocross with the car, so please stay tuned for that. Make sure you subscribe. But thank you guys very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.